Today we have something super interesting, the world's first under-display camera, right here on the Axon 20 5G. Or is it the 07 Noxiv? So many new phones these days. And if you understood that reference, you've probably been subscribed for too long. Right out of the box, this thing looks pretty beastly. Like some kind of supervillain phone. I could see this hiding in Voldemort's pocket, or Darth Vader using it to play some Flappy Birds after blowing up Alderaan. I kinda like it. Let's get started. Inside the box, we get our normal wall charger, USB-C power cord, and a free case. Protection is always a good thing. But seriously, this back is insane. I bet for sure this is how Sauron calls his mom. The coolest part of this phone though, and what we are here for, is the front camera. The Axon 20 has a wall-to-wall bezel-less display, no notch, and no motorized pop-up camera, yet still has a front-facing camera hidden here somewhere. If I pull down the menu a little bit, we can see that indeed the screen is notchless, but when I open up the camera, it can still take my picture. Kinda mind-blowing. The image quality is unique. Remember, this is a $450 smartphone, and all my lights have halos around them. But if I pull the camera back and take a normal selfie, it's not that bad. It's not as clean or crisp as a regular surface-mounted camera, but remember, we are taking a picture through the screen, and this is a first-generation unit, so it's probably not going to be completely perfect. Side by side with my Note 10 Plus, we can see the quality difference. Remember though that the Axon 20 is half the price. The front camera is 32 megapixels, which is quite a bit more pixels than we're used to seeing, and might be because the camera just needs more data to work with, since it's capturing an image through so many screen layers. All of the stock backgrounds on the Axon 20 have a dark patch near the top of the screen, so I'm going to take my own picture with a white background, so we can get a close-up look at that see-through display in action. If you remember last year, in the before times, I went and saw a transparent OLED TV made by LG, where when the pixels turn on, they illuminate, but when they go black, they turn off and are just gone. And it's transparent because the area around the pixels is clear. And if we look really closely, we can see that ZTE is kind of doing the same thing, but has accomplished their transparency by actually using two different screens. The main screen takes up most of the phone's real estate, but there is a smaller, second, lower resolution screen about the size of an ant that covers up the camera. And since it's lower resolution in this one tiny spot, it gives the camera more room between pixels to see through, but only when the display is black and the pixels are turned off. You can see the cool little screen effect that plays when I turn the front-facing camera on, and how the camera can see through the glass screen when the OLED pixels are black or turned off. If the pixels were lit, the camera behind the glass would obviously not work. Pretty fascinating, and I think it works pretty well for a first-generation device. I mean, if you're a professional Snapchatter or a TikToker, this might not be the best camera for you, but for a sub-$500 phone, shooting through the screen, I think it's pretty darn good. The square patch is semi-obvious when we're zoomed in super close in 4K resolution, but if we back up to a normal perspective, it does disappear and blend into the rest of the screen pretty well. When we're watching a full-screen video, that ant-sized patch of low-resolution OLED pixels are basically unnoticeable. They're working just as hard as their higher-resolution counterparts on the rest of the screen. And if I'm being honest, I kinda like this transparent display better than a notch or hole punch. I'm a fan of where this technology is headed. We'll get back to the front camera more in just a second, but first, let's see what the rest of the Axon 20 is made of. For a $450 phone, I've been impressed so far. Just like usual, we use the Mohs scale of hardness to check the screen. And just like usual, we start seeing scratches at a level 6, with deeper grooves at a level 7. ZTE has made everything go under the display this time around, including the earpiece. We've seen underscreen earpiece technologies before, like in the Pixel 5, but it is pretty cool to see one brand implementing all of the underscreen technologies in one phone. Up close and personal again with that camera square. At some angles it stands out more than others, and if we hold it just right, we can almost see the camera unit itself behind the glass. Still protected from scratching, of course. The sides of the Axon 20 5G are made from plastic, along with the top of the phone. No headphone jack here, and there is more plastic running down the other side. Once we get to the bottom of the phone, there's more plastic yet again. There's nothing wrong with plastic, of course, but it does make you wonder how it'll hold up during the bin test. There is a SIM and SD card slot, but no official IP rating. Flipping the phone over, we can see once again that this is totally a phone Loki would call an Uber with. Evil, yet stylish. The Noxiv logo in the bottom corner is covered with glass, along with the 4-unit camera lens. The 2-megapixel macro camera down at the bottom, then a 2-megapixel depth camera, 64-megapixel main camera, and finally an 8-megapixel wide-angle camera up top, with its single-color dual LED flash. Speaking of putting everything beneath the screen, the Axon 20 has an optical under-screen fingerprint scanner. Once I get that all good and scratched up with level 7 deeper grooves, it can still read and unlock my fingerprint every single time. Thumbs up for that. I think we should get one more close-up look at this ant-sized second screen, just in case this is our last chance, since not every phone survives the bin test. It's mostly invisible when looking at the phone head-on, but at certain angles in super bright light we can peer into its depths. Fire is also sometimes associated with evil, which is perfect because I do happen to have some fire. The 6.9-inch 1080p display on the Axon 20 is 10-bit, which means it has way more colors than your average iPhone or Samsung, and it lasts about 13 seconds under the heat from my lighter, but still mostly recovers. And since I know some of you want to know what happens when I burn the baby screen up top, we'll go ahead and try that as well. It is an evil phone. After about 10 seconds we get the same pulsing lights, and even though it does recover, that burn makes the secondary screen a bit more visible. So it might be a good idea to leave the villain phone topside if you're ever visiting Hades in the underworld. Finally, the bin test. The Axon 20 is a large phone with plastic sides, and does flex a bit with the bin test, but does not crack or break, even when bent from the opposite direction. Not too shabby. The Axon 20 5G passes my durability test. I'm curious, would you rather have an underscreen camera or a notch on your next phone? Let me know down in the comments. Either way, I think it's a safe bet that we're going to see a lot more of this underscreen camera stuff in the future. It'll probably show up in some sketchy products, as well as Apple being very excited when they invent it in 3 or 4 years. So I look forward to that. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the teardown. We're going to see that camera from the inside, and come hang out with me on Instagram and Twitter. Thanks a ton for watching. I'll see you around.